Let's talk today about writing hooks. So this is one of the most important parts of your essay, and the reason is because the reader is going to look at this first sentence and determine whether or not they want to keep writing. Now, of course, if the reader is your teacher and they have assigned this essay, of course they will keep reading, but they will be evaluating whether your hook has gotten their attention. So what is a hook? Well, it's the first sentence of your essay, the first sentence of your introductory paragraph. It's what grabs the reader's attention. It can be written several ways. It is what sets the tone for the essay. So, the way you write this hook, if you write something that's humorous, we're going to expect humor in the essay. If you write something very academic and serious, we're going to expect maybe an informative essay, something that presents some facts and figures, maybe even a study, something like that. So the hook you choose is very important as well. Hooks can take several forms. So that first sentence of your introduction might be an interesting fact or statistic. It could be a question, an intriguing question to your audience, to your reader. It could be a story or anecdote. It might be a quote. It could be a definition. A hook can also be a claim or strong statement, that should say or. Finally, it can be a metaphor or simile. So let's go through these and do an example, which is often the best way to illustrate this. You have been asked to write about a famous artist. So maybe you're writing an essay, it could be a research paper, any of the above. And we're going to choose Picasso just for the sake of picking a topic today. So you've done your research on Picasso, and you're ready to put some things together, but you need to figure out what that first sentence is. How are you going to hook or captivate your audience? You need to write something compelling. How are you going to get that reader interested in learning about Picasso's life, the way you're interested in it now that you have done your research? Number 1 stated we could choose an interesting fact or statistic from that list previously. So maybe you could say something like Picasso's first word was pencil. So that's an interesting fact that I learned about him by doing some research. Now, we can go a lot of ways with this and kind of, go into maybe talking about him as an artist, beginning with sketching and the fact that this seemed to be on his brain from the time he was just a baby, using his first word as pencil. We could go with number 2, the option of a question, and say, did you know that Picasso was a terrible student? So this I like to combine a question with an interesting fact sometimes, because the fact that he was a terrible student might tell us something about what we are now going to describe. Maybe we'll talk about his childhood and lead into the different movements of his paintings, and maybe how his background influenced his work in the future. There are so many directions this can take, and it really just depends on what you have decided. We could go with number 3, a story or anecdote. So I've written an example here. Ironically, Picasso's first word was pencil, even though he was a terrible student. He was known to enjoy being banished to the white cell in school for punishment, but he loved it because he could draw and sketch quietly. So I was able to look up this information and kind of put 2 of our hooks together into an interesting story or anecdote. And now we can see it kind of coming together a little bit if we chose something like this to determine what his influence was from his childhood for his painting. Maybe we'll choose number 4, which is a quote. Action is the foundational key to all success. Everything you can imagine is real. These are 2 quotes by Picasso. There are numerous quotes out there. You can choose something that has to do with the direction you're taking in developing your essay on Picasso. Where you can find some great quotes, I like to go to goodreads.com to get literary quotes, which I tend to use in my own writing. You can go to brainyquote.com. If you're writing a biography or something like this, you could go to a biography or history site about Picasso. You could even go to an art site and see if there are any quotes that get your attention. We could go with number 5, a definition. An artist is a person who produces works in any of the arts that are primarily subject to aesthetic criteria. So this is a definition of an artist. You may then go on to explain why Picasso was one of the great artists, why he does fit this definition, why he doesn't fit this definition. So many different options here. Number 6 is a strong statement. Picasso isn't the artist's real name. I was surprised to find this out, that he actually has a name that's 25 words long, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong there. But that's something that's kind of surprising. It's also a bold statement, and it could say something to speak a little bit to his character, to him as a painter, to his parents' creativity, that kind of thing. Number 7, we could choose a simile or a metaphor, both comparisons, direct and indirect, or we could even choose an analogy. Picasso's Guernica is to art as the wasteland is to poetry. So looking at these two, we could focus on one of his most famous paintings, and maybe that's the direction your paper is going to take. So, things to ask yourself before you choose which type of hook to write. What tone do I want to set? Do I want a very formal academic tone throughout my essay? Do I want something humorous? Am I going to have a lighter tone going throughout? Am I presenting facts and figures? You want to consider, do I want to be formal? Do I want to be informal? And you really need to ask, who is my audience in order to determine this? It all starts with your audience. Who are you writing for, or for whom are you writing? You need to determine that and then go from there. In what direction am I taking this essay? Am I writing about one of his paintings? Am I writing about all of his movements? Am I writing about the childhood influence that helped develop him as a painter? There are numerous directions, and generally your research will lead you in one of those directions. So, if you found this interesting, please subscribe. I will be going through a lot of different types of writing and parts of the writing process, getting into a little bit more about how we can develop as researchers, and there will be many different kind of mini lessons here. So, examples of great literary hooks. I chose a few of these to show you what you could do. These are for actual novels, so if you're writing fiction, of course, you could use something like this, but consider how you can use literary hooks too, and how these great writers did it. We slept in what once had been the gymnasium. So this is from The Handmaid's Tale, and this is the opening of the book, and it certainly gets the reader's attention. In fiction, authors have to have very catchy first lines in order to bring that reader in, and really even to get a literary agent interested and maybe even representing their work. In my earliest memory, my grandfather is bald as a stone, and he takes me to see the tigers. So imagine this as a first line. You want to find out more about this. Why is the grandfather taking this person to see the tigers? And then why are we describing the grandfather as bald? You kind of begin to picture this scenario unfolding. The third example is the war in Zagreb began over a pack of cigarettes. So this is certainly interesting too. If you're writing something historical, you could put an interesting fact like this to say how an entire war began over something as simple as a pack of cigarettes. Okay, so just examples about how you can get your reader to want to continue looking at what you have to say. So now it's your turn. If you have an essay, hopefully this helped you to develop your hook. If you still need help or want some feedback, you can go to this link and work with me.